23 million years ago, the oceans of the Miocene churned with primal life, a vast, untamed world where the sun's rays barely pierced the deep. The seas teemed with creatures, giant whales with skulls like fortresses, schools of fish that shimmered like silver storms, and ancient turtles with shells as broad as boulders. In this crucible of evolution, a new terror was born, a shadow that would cast its dominion over every corner of the deep. The Carcharocles Megalodon, a colossal shark, emerged from the lineage of ancient mako sharks, its form a masterpiece of power and dread. Its body, stretching up to 18 meters, dwarfed all that swam before it, and its jaws, lined with teeth as long as a man's hand, gleamed with the promise of destruction. In the warm, tropical waters off what would one day be called the Americas, a lone megalodon glided through a coral maze, its slate-gray hide catching the faint light filtering through the waves. Its eyes, cold and unyielding, scanned the abyss, missing nothing. The ocean was alive with sound clicks of ancient dolphins, bellows of primitive whales, the hum of currents weaving through reefs. But when the megalodon moved, the sea fell silent, as if holding its breath. Schools of fish scattered like sparks, their silver bodies fleeing the shadow that loomed ever closer. The titan's tail swept with slow, deliberate power, propelling it through the water with a grace that belied its size. Above, in the shallows, a pod of early whales grazed on plankton, their massive forms bobbing in the current. They were giants in their own right, their bodies armored with blubber, but they were no match for the predator below. The megalodon rose, its jaws parting to reveal rows of serrated teeth, each a blade honed by eons of evolution. With a single, explosive surge, it struck, its teeth sinking into the flank of a whale. Blood clouded the water, a crimson veil that drew smaller scavengers, only to scatter as the megalodon turned its gaze upon them. The whale's bellows faded, its life claimed by the sea's new king. Far from the kill, in a coastal lagoon, a female megalodon gave birth. Her pups, already 3 meters long, emerged into the warm shallows, their tiny teeth glinting as they snapped at passing fish. The mother lingered, her massive form a silent guardian, ensuring their safety in this nursery of the deep. The lagoon was a haven, its waters rich with prey, its reefs a labyrinth that kept larger threats at bay. The pups grew swiftly, their instincts sharpening with each hunt, learning the art of dominance that would make them lords of the sea. The ocean's currents seemed to sing of their arrival, a low hum that vibrated through the water, as if the sea itself acknowledged its new masters. On the ocean floor, the bones of ancient creatures lay scattered, relics of a world that had not yet known the megalodon's reign. A giant squid, its tentacles still twitching, sank into the sediment, its beak no match for the shark's jaws. The megalodon's teeth, lost in countless battles, littered the seabed, their edges sharp even in defeat. These were the first trophies of a species that would rule for millions of years, a testament to its unmatched power. The sea was a vast, interconnected web, and the megalodon was its apex, a force that kept the balance by culling the weak and shaping the strong. Yet, even in its birth, there was a whisper of something greater. The ocean's hum, felt by the megalodon as it hunted, carried a note of warning, a voice older than the reefs. The currents spoke of change, of cycles that even the mightiest could not escape. The megalodon, young and invincible, paid no heed, its hunger driving it to claim the seas. It hunted along ancient coastlines, its shadow stretching across the waters that would one day be called the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans. Its teeth sank into the flesh of creatures long forgotten, their bones sinking to join the sediment, a record of the titan's reign. In the depths, a strange presence stirred, a shadow that was not a creature, but a feeling, a pulse in the water that seemed to watch the megalodon's rise. The sea shadow, as it might later be named, was the ocean's spirit, a force that balanced life and death. It did not judge the megalodon, but it observed, its hum a reminder that even kings must bow to time. The shark swam on, its jaws closing around a giant turtle, crushing its shell with ease. The sea was its kingdom, and the megalodon was its unchallenged ruler, born to dominate the abyss. As the sun set over the Miocene seas, casting golden rays through the water, the megalodon patrolled its domain, its silhouette a dark promise against the light. The ocean sang of its power, but the hum lingered, a faint echo of a future unwritten. The titan's reign had begun. But the sea knew what the megalodon did not. No kingdom lasts forever, and the abyss holds secrets even the mightiest cannot fathom. The Miocene oceans pulsed with life, a vast tapestry of currents and creatures woven under a sun that burned hotter than any in human memory. 20 million years ago, the seas were a kingdom of chaos and abundance, where giant whales roamed in pods, their bellows echoing across the deep, and schools of fish shimmered like living silver. In this primal world, the Carcharocles Megalodon had grown from a newborn terror into a titan, its reign unchallenged. Its massive body, now reaching lengths of 18 to 20 meters, cut through the water with a power that silenced the ocean's chorus. Its jaws, lined with rows of serrated teeth, as long as a warrior's dagger, gleamed with the promise of death, and its eyes, cold as the abyss, missed nothing. In the warm turquoise waters of an ancient coastline that would one day be called Australia, a mature megalodon patrolled its domain. Its slate-grey hide, scarred from battles with leviathans, glistened as it moved, its tail sweeping with deliberate force. The sea parted before it, fish scattering in panic, their frantic darts no match for the titan's speed. Above, a pod of primitive whales grazed on krill, their massive forms casting shadows on the coral reefs below. They were giants, their blubber thick and their fins broad, but they were prey in the megalodon's world. The shark rose from the depths, its silhouette a dark omen, and with a single, explosive surge, it struck. Its jaws clamped around a whale's flank, teeth crunching through bone and flesh. Blood bloomed in the water, a crimson cloud that drew smaller sharks, only to flee as the megalodon turned its gaze upon them. The ocean was a battlefield, and the megalodon was its undisputed king. Its hunts were not mere acts of survival, but a force that shaped the seas. By culling the weak-sick whales, injured seals, or slow-moving turtles, it ensured the strength of the ocean's ecosystems. Schools of fish thrived in the balance, their numbers kept in check by smaller predators that feared the megalodon's shadow. Coral reefs flourished, fed by the nutrients of its kills, and the currents carried the spoils across the deep. The titan's presence was a cornerstone, its hunger a rhythm that pulsed through the sea's heart. In a shallow lagoon, a nursery for the megalodon's young, a dozen pups swam under the watchful eye of their mother. Each pup, already 3 meters long, snapped at passing fish, their tiny teeth sharp and eager. The lagoon was a fortress of reefs, its warm waters rich with prey, a sanctuary where the young learned to hunt. The mother, a scarred giant, circled the edges, her massive form a deterrent to any rival. Her pups mimicked her, lunging at small sharks, their instincts honing with each kill. The ocean's hum, a low vibration that seemed to rise from the earth itself, sang of their future, a promise of dominance that would span millions of years. On the ocean floor, the megalodon's legacy was already taking shape. Teeth, lost in countless hunts, sank into the sediment, their edges still sharp, glinting like fallen stars. The bones of its prey whale skulls, turtle shells, the spines of giant fish piled in silent heaps, a testament to the titan's reign. In the deep trenches, where light barely reached, a massive megalodon rested, its body coiled around the carcass of a sperm whale ancestor. Its jaws had crushed the whale's skull, a feat that left smaller scavengers circling at a distance, too wary to approach. The sea was a gallery of the megalodon's triumphs, its trophies scattered across every ocean. Yet, even in its glory, there were whispers of change. The ocean's hum, felt by the megalodon as it hunted, carried a subtle discord, a note that spoke of shifting currents and cooling waters. The sea shadow, a presence more felt than seen, stirred in the deep, its form a flicker in the corners of the titan's vision. It was not a creature but a pulse, a spirit of the ocean that watched the megalodon's rise with neither fear nor favor. The shark, driven by hunger, paid no heed, its jaws closing around a giant seal, tearing through its blubber with ease. The sea was its kingdom, and the megalodon was its god, invincible in its prime. In the open ocean, a pod of megalodons hunted together, a rare and terrifying sight. Their massive forms moved in unison, surrounding a pod of ancient whales. The lead shark, a female with a hide scarred from battles, led the charge, her teeth sinking into a whale's tail. The others followed, their jaws snapping, blood clouding the water. The whales fought, their flukes thrashing, but the megalodons were relentless, their power unmatched. The hunt was a symphony of destruction, the ocean's hum rising to a crescendo, as if celebrating the titan's might. as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sea in hues of fire and shadow. The Megalodon patrolled alone, its silhouette a dark blade against the fading light. The ocean sang of its dominance, but the sea shadow's hum lingered, a faint warning of a world that would not remain unchanged. The Megalodon's reign was at its peak, but the abyss held secrets, and even the mightiest titan could not outswim the tides of time. 5 million years ago, in the Pliocene epoch, the oceans were a realm of boundless abundance, their waters warm and teeming with life. Coral reefs sprawled like underwater cities, schools of fish danced in shimmering clouds, and giant whales carved paths through the deep, their bellows echoing across vast distances. In this golden age of the sea, the Carcharocles Megalodon stood as the unchallenged sovereign, its massive form a dark god gliding through every ocean, stretching up to 20 meters, with jaws that could crush bone like brittle stone. The Megalodon was the apex of apex predators, its presence a force that shaped the very rhythm of the sea. Its teeth, serrated and gleaming, left scars on the bones of its prey, a testament to a reign that spanned the globe. In the open waters of what would one day be the Indian Ocean, a pod of megalodons hunted with lethal precision. The lead female, her hide a map of scars from battles with leviathans, led the charge, her 18-meter body slicing through the current, her eyes, cold as the abyss, locked onto a pod of ancient baleen whales, their massive forms grazing on krill near the surface. The whales were giants, their bodies armored with blubber, but they were no match for the Megalodon's coordinated assault. The pod fanned out, their tails sweeping in unison, encircling the prey like a net of shadow. The lead female struck first, her jaws clamping around a whale's tail, teeth sinking deep. Blood clouded the water, a crimson veil that signaled the hunt's success. The other megalodons joined, their bites tearing through flesh, the whale's bellows fading into silence. The ocean was a theater of the Megalodon's dominance, its stage stretching from the tropical shallows of ancient Africa to the cooler coasts of primordial Europe. The Titan hunted alone or in pods, its versatility unmatched. In a coastal bay, a lone Megalodon ambushed a giant seal, its teeth shattering the creature's spine with a single snap. In deeper waters, a pair of Megalodons brought down a sperm whale ancestor, their combined strength overwhelming its thrashing flukes. The sea's ecosystems thrived under this brutal balance, the Megalodon culling the weak and ensuring the strength of its prey. Coral reefs flourished, fed by the nutrients of its kills, and smaller predator sharks and early dolphins scavenged in its wake, never daring to challenge the Titan. In a sheltered lagoon, a nursery teemed with Megalodon pups, their 3-meter bodies already formidable. The mother, a scarred veteran, patrolled the edges, her presence a deterrent to any threat. The pups hunted small fish, their tiny teeth sharpening with each kill, learning the art of predation that would make them lords of the sea. The lagoon's warm waters were a cradle, its reefs a fortress, ensuring the survival of the next generation. The ocean's hum, a low vibration that pulsed through the deep, sang of their future, a promise of continued dominance. The Megalodons were not just hunters but architects of the sea, their presence shaping the web of life that sustained it. On the ocean floor, the Megalodon's legacy grew. Teeth, lost in countless hunts, sank into the sediment, their serrated edges gleaming like relics of a god. The bones of its prey whale skulls, seal ribs, the carapaces of giant turtles piled in silent heaps, a gallery of the Titan's triumphs. In a deep trench, a Megalodon rested, its massive form coiled around the carcass of a leviathan. Its jaws had crushed the creature's skull, leaving a crater of bone that smaller scavengers circled warily. The sea was a monument to the Megalodon's power, its every current carrying the echo of its reign. Yet, beneath the surface of this golden age, the ocean whispered of change. The sea shadow, a presence felt rather than seen, stirred in the deep, its form a flicker in the currents. It was the spirit of the sea, a force that balanced life and death, watching the Megalodon with neither fear nor favor. The Titan, driven by hunger, paid no heed, its jaws closing around a massive fish, tearing it apart with ease. But the hum grew discordant, a subtle shift that spoke of cooling waters and shifting currents. The earth was changing, its climate cooling, its ice caps creeping southward. The Megalodon's prey, once abundant, began to migrate, their numbers thinning in the Titan's favored hunting grounds. In a tropical sea, a Megalodon chased a pod of whales, its body surging through the water. The whales were smaller now, their migration patterns altered by colder currents. The Titan's jaws snapped, catching one, but the effort was greater, the reward slimmer. Smaller predators, early orcas, swift and cunning, lurked at the edges, stealing scraps from the Megalodon's kill. The Titan roared, its tail lashing, scattering the interlopers, but the sea shadow's hum grew louder, a warning that even the mightiest could not ignore. The ocean was shifting, its balance tilting, and the Megalodon, for all its power, was not immune to time. As the sun set over the Pliocene seas, casting fiery hues across the waves, the Megalodon patrolled its kingdom, its silhouette a dark blade against the light. The ocean sang of its glory, but the sea shadow's presence lingered, a reminder that no reign lasts forever. The Titan's teeth sank into a final kill, blood clouding the water, but the hum carried a note of mourning, a whisper of the trials to come. 3.5 million years ago, the Pliocene oceans bore the weight of a world in transition. The seas, once warm and brimming with life, now carried a chill that crept from the poles, reshaping currents and scattering prey. Coral reefs, though still vibrant, shrank in the cooling waters, and the bellows of ancient whales grew fainter, their pods smaller as they fled to deeper, colder realms. Yet, in this shifting seascape, the Carcharocles Megalodon remained a titan, its massive form a dark spectre that commanded fear and awe. At up to 20 meters long, with jaws that could crush a whale's skull in a single bite, the Megalodon was the unchallenged lord of the deep, its reign a monument to raw power. But the ocean's hum, a vibration that pulsed through the currents, carried a new note, one of warning, of change, of an end drawing near. In the waters of a primordial coastline that would one day be South America, a solitary Megalodon patrolled a fading reef, its slate-gray hide scarred from countless battles. Its eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the horizon for prey, but the sea was quieter now. The schools of fish thinner, the giant whales scarcer. The Titan's tail swept with slow, deliberate force, propelling its 18-meter body through the water. But its hunger gnawed, a fire that burned without satiation. Above, a lone baleen whale grazed on dwindling krill, its body leaner than those of its ancestors. The Megalodon surged, its jaws parting to reveal teeth as long as daggers, serrated edges glinting in the filtered sunlight. With a single, explosive strike, it tore into the whale's flank, blood clouding the water in a crimson haze. The whale's bellows faded, its life claimed, but the kill felt hollow, the prey too small to sat the Titan's appetite. The ocean was no longer the boundless feast it had been. The Earth's cooling climate, driven by shifting continents and growing ice caps, had altered the seas. Currents that once carried nutrient-rich waters to coastal feeding grounds now veered toward the poles, leaving the Megalodon's hunting grounds sparse. The Titan swam on, its hunger driving it to chase shadows, but the sea's balance was tilting. Smaller predators, early orcas, swift and cunning, began to encroach, their pods stealing scraps from the Megalodon's kills. In a shallow bay, a young Megalodon snapped at a school of fish, only to find an orca darting in, snatching its prey. The Titan roared, its tail lashing, scattering the intruder. But the encounter left a marker sign that the sea was no longer solely its domain. In a coastal lagoon, a Megalodon nursery lay exposed, its once warm waters cooling as sea levels dropped. The pups, still formidable at 3 meters, hunted with ferocity, their teeth sinking into small sharks and fish. But the reefs that had shielded them were eroding, and larger predators, other sharks, emboldened by hunger, lurked closer. The mother, a scarred giant, circled the lagoon, her presence a fading shield. One pup strayed too far, its small form caught by a swift-moving current. A rival shark struck, its teeth drawing blood, and the mother's roar shook the water, driving the attacker away. But the pup was lost, its body sinking to the sediment, a sign of the nursery's vulnerability. The ocean's hum grew discordant, a mournful note that echoed the loss. On the ocean floor, the Megalodon's legacy endured, but even it bore traces of change. Teeth, lost in hunts, littered the seabed, their edges dulled by time. The bones of its prey whale ribs, seal spines, the shells of giant turtles lay scattered, but fewer now, as prey dwindled. In a deep trench, a Megalodon rested, its massive form coiled around the remains of a giant fish. Its jaws had torn through scales and bone, but the kill was meager, barely sustaining the Titan's strength. Smaller scavengers circled their boldness and new defiance. The sea shadow, the ocean's spirit, stirred in the deep, its presence a flicker in the currents. It was not a creature but a pulse, a force that watched the megalodon with a knowing silence, its hum a warning that the titan could not ignore. In the open sea, a pod of megalodons hunted, their massive forms moving in a deadly dance. They surrounded a pod of ancient whales, their jaws snapping in unison. The lead male, his hide a tapestry of scars, led the assault, his teeth sinking into a whale's side. Blood clouded the water, but the whales were fewer, their bodies smaller, their fight weaker. The megalodons prevailed, but the hunt was harder, the reward thinner. Early orcas lingered at the edges, their sleek forms darting in to steal scraps. The lead megalodon roared, its tail lashing, but the orcas were relentless, their speed a challenge the titan could not outmatch. The ocean's hum grew louder, a dirge that vibrated through the deep. The sea shadow's presence was stronger now, its form a shadow that flickered in the megalodon's vision. It spoke of cooling seas, of prey fleeing to distant waters, of a world where size alone could not prevail. The titan swam on, its hunger driving it to chase a lone whale, its jaws closing with desperate force. The kill was swift, but the whale's flesh was lean, its blubber thin. The megalodon's eyes, once cold and certain, now held a flicker of doubt, as if sensing the sea's betrayal. As the sun sank below the horizon, casting the Pliocene seas in shades of violet and shadow, the megalodon patrolled its fading kingdom. Its silhouette was a dark blade against the dying light, its power still unmatched but no longer unquestioned. The ocean sang of its glory, but the sea shadow's hum carried a warning, a whisper of a world where even titans could fall. The megalodon's reign was vast, but the tides were turning, and the abyss held secrets that would test its strength. 3 million years ago, in the waning days of the Pliocene, the oceans bore the scars of a world in flux. The seas, once a boundless feast of life, had grown colder, their currents twisted by the creeping advance of ice from the poles. Coral reefs withered in the cooling waters, their vibrant colors fading, and the pods of ancient whales, once plentiful, dwindled as they fled to deeper, harsher realms. The Carcharocles Megalodon, the titan of the deep, still ruled as the apex predator, its massive form a shadow that struck terror into every creature. But the sea's hum, a vibration that pulsed through the depths, now carried a mournful dirge, a warning that even the mightiest could not outrun the hunger that stalked them. In the vast Pacific, where the waters stretched endless and dark, a lone megalodon patrolled a barren stretch of sea. Its 20-meter body, scarred from battles with leviathans, moved with a weary grace, its slate-gray hide catching the faint light of a sinking sun. Its jaws, lined with serrated teeth as long as daggers, parted in anticipation, but its eyes, once cold and unyielding, now held a flicker of desperation. The ocean was quieter, the schools of fish sparser, the giant whales rarer. Hunger gnawed at the titan, a relentless fire that demanded prey it could no longer find. The megalodon's tail swept with fading strength, its body leaner than in its prime, a sign that the sea was no longer its ally. Above, a solitary baleen whale, smaller than its ancestors, grazed on thinning krill, its movements sluggish. The megalodon surged from the depths, its jaws snapping with desperate force. Teeth sank into the whale's side, blood clouding the water in a crimson haze, but the kill was meager, the whale's blubber thin and unsatisfying. Smaller predators, early orcas, swift and cunning, darted in, stealing scraps before the megalodon could drive them off. The titan roared, its tail lashing, scattering the interlopers, but the effort drained it. The sea's hum grew louder, a low wail that seemed to mourn the titan's struggle, a sound that echoed in its bones. In a coastal lagoon, once a thriving nursery, the megalodon's young fought to survive. The waters, now cooler and less forgiving, offered little prey. A pup, barely 3 meters long, snapped at a small fish, its tiny teeth sharp but its body gaunt. The mother, a scarred giant, circled the lagoon, her presence a fading shield against rival sharks that grew bolder with each passing season. A swift-moving current pulled a pup from the safety of the reefs, and a rival shark struck, its teeth tearing into the young megalodon's flank. The mother's roar shook the water, her jaws crushing the attacker. But the pup was lost, its blood staining the lagoon. The ocean's hum became a lament, a signal that the nurseries, once fortresses, were no longer safe. On the ocean floor, the Megalodon's legacy lay in fragments. Teeth, lost in desperate hunts, sank into the sediment, their edges dulled by the weight of time. The bones of its prey whale ribs, seal spines, the shattered shells of giant turtles were fewer now, a sign of the sea's dwindling bounty. In a deep trench, a megalodon rested, its massive form coiled around the remains of a giant fish. The kill was small, barely sustaining the titan's strength, and smaller scavengers circled closer, their boldness a new challenge. The sea shadow, the ocean's spirit, stirred in the depths, its presence a flicker in the currents. It was not a creature but a pulse, a force that watched the megalodon with a silent knowing, its hum a warning of a world slipping away. In the open sea, a pod of megalodons hunted, their once lethal coordination fraying. They surrounded a dwindling pod of whales, their jaws snapping, but the prey were fewer, their bodies leaner. The lead female, her hide a tapestry of scars, struck first, her teeth sinking into a whale's side. Blood clouded the water, but the kill was shared among the pod, each bite smaller than before. Early orcas lingered at the edges, their sleek forms darting into steel scraps. The megalodons roared, their tails lashing, but the orcas were relentless, their speed and cunning a growing threat. The sea's balance was shifting, favoring agility over raw power, and the titans felt the weight of change. The sea shadow's presence grew stronger, its form a shadow that flickered in the megalodon's vision. It spoke of cooling seas, of prey vanishing into distant waters, of a world where hunger would outpace strength. The titan swam on, its jaws closing around a lone seal, its flesh barely a morsel. The megalodon's eyes, once certain, now held a trace of doubt, as if sensing the sea's betrayal. The ocean's hum was a dirge now, vibrating through the deep, a mournful song that echoed the titan's fading glory. As twilight fell over the Pliocene seas, casting the water in shades of violet and shadow, the megalodon patrolled its shrinking kingdom. Its silhouette was a dark blade against the fading light, its power still formidable, but no longer absolute. The ocean sang of its past triumphs, but the sea shadow's hum carried a warning, a whisper of a time when even the greatest titan could fall. The megalodon's hunger drove it forward, but the sea was changing, and the abyss held secrets that would test its reign. 2.5 million years ago, in the fading light of the Pliocene, the oceans bore the weight of a world unraveling. The seas, once teeming with boundless life, had grown colder, their currents twisted by the relentless advance of ice from the poles. Coral reefs, once vibrant citadels, crumbled into grey skeletons, and the pods of ancient whales, their bellows once a symphony, grew sparse, fleeing to distant icy waters. The Carcharocles Megalodon, the titan of the deep, still ruled as a god of destruction, its 20-meter form a shadow that struck terror into the heart of the sea. But the ocean's hum, a vibration that pulsed through the depths, was now a mournful wail, a dirge that spoke of rivals rising and a kingdom slipping away. In the waters off a primordial coastline that would one day be called Africa, a young megalodon, its hide still smooth and unscarred, hunted alone. Its 18-meter body surged through the cooling sea, its jaws lined with serrated teeth that gleamed like daggers. Hunger gnawed at its core, a relentless fire that drove it to chase a dwindling school of fish. The sea was quieter now, the once abundant prey scattered or gone. Above, a lone giant seal swam, its movements sluggish, its body leaner than those of its ancestors. The megalodon struck, its jaws clamping down with bone-crushing force, blood clouding the water in a crimson haze. But the kill was small, barely a morsel for the titan's vast appetite, and as it fed, a new shadow circled a pod of early orcas, their sleek forms darting with predatory cunning. The orcas, ancestors of modern killer whales, were smaller than the megalodon, their bodies barely 6 meters long, but they hunted in packs, their intelligence a weapon as sharp as teeth. They circled the young titan, their clicks echoing like a taunt, their fins slicing the water with precision. The megalodon roared, its tail lashing, driving them back. But the orcas were relentless, darting in to nip at its flanks, drawing blood. The titan snapped, its jaws crushing one orca, blood mixing with the seal's, but the others retreated only briefly, their eyes gleaming with defiance. The sea's hum grew louder, a warning that the megalodon's reign was no longer unchallenged, that new rivals had risen to claim the deep. In a coastal lagoon, once a thriving nursery, the Megalodon's young struggled to survive. The waters, now colder and less forgiving, offered scant prey, and the reefs that had shielded them were eroding, exposing the pups to danger. A young Megalodon, 3 meters long, snapped at a small fish, its tiny teeth sharp but its body gaunt from hunger. The mother, a scarred giant, circled the lagoon, her presence a fading deterrent. A rival shark, emboldened by the nursery's decline, struck at a pup, its teeth tearing into its side. The mother's roar shook the water, her jaws crushing the attacker, but the pup sank, its blood staining the lagoon red. The ocean's hum became a lament, a mournful song that echoed the loss of the next generation, a sign that the Megalodon's future was slipping away. On the ocean floor, the Titan's legacy lay in fragments, a shadow of its former glory. Teeth, lost in desperate hunts, sank into the sediment, their edges dulled by time. The bones of its prey whale skulls, seal ribs, the carapaces of giant turtles were fewer now, scattered across a seabed that grew barer with each passing season. In a deep trench, a Megalodon rested, its massive form coiled around the remains of a lone whale. The kill was meager, its blubber thin, and smaller scavengers circled closer, their boldness a new challenge. The sea shadow, the ocean's spirit, stirred in the depths, its presence a flicker in the currents. It was not a creature but a pulse, a force that watched the Megalodon with a silent knowing, its hum a prophecy of a world where size alone could not prevail. In the open sea, a pod of Megalodons hunted, their once lethal coordination fraying under the weight of hunger. They surrounded a small pod of whales, their jaws snapping, but the prey were lean, their numbers few. The lead female, her hide, a tapestry of scars, struck first, her teeth sinking into a whale's side. But the kill was shared among the pod, each bite smaller than before. A pod of orcas lingered at the edges, their sleek forms darting in to steal scraps. The Megalodons roared, their tails lashing, but the orcas were relentless, their speed and cunning outmatching the Titan's brute strength. The sea's balance was shifting, favoring agility over power, and the Megalodons felt the weight of their rivals rise. The sea shadow's presence grew stronger, its form a shadow that flickered in the Megalodon's vision. It spoke of cooling seas, of prey vanishing into distant waters, of a world where hunger would outpace strength. The Titan swam on, its jaws closing around a lone fish, its flesh barely a morsel. The Megalodon's eyes, once certain, now held a trace of exhaustion, as if sensing the sea's betrayal. The ocean's hum was a dirge now, vibrating through the deep, a mournful song that echoed the Titan's fading glory. As twilight fell over the Pliocene seas, casting the water in shades of indigo and shadow, the Megalodon patrolled its shrinking kingdom. Its silhouette was a dark blade against the fading light, its power still formidable but no longer absolute. The ocean sang of its past triumphs, but the sea shadow's hum carried a warning, a whisper of a time when even the greatest Titan could fall. The Megalodon's hunger drove it forward, but the sea was changing, and the abyss held secrets that would test its reign to the breaking point. 2.5 million years ago, as the Pliocene epoch drew to its twilight, the oceans bore the weight of a world on the brink of collapse. The seas, once vibrant with life, had grown cold and unforgiving, their currents twisted by the relentless advance of ice caps that choked the poles. Coral reefs, once sprawling kingdoms, lay in ruins, their colors faded to gray, and the pods of ancient whales, their bellows once an anthem of the deep, were now mere shadows, scattered to distant icy waters. The Carcharocles Megalodon, the Titan of the seas, clung to its throne, its 20-meter form a fading specter of power. But the ocean's hum, a vibration that pulsed through the abyss, was now a deafening roar, a dirge that heralded the end of an era. In the vast Atlantic, where the waters stretched dark and desolate, an aging Megalodon patrolled a barren stretch of sea. Its hide, once a gleaming slate gray, was now a patchwork of scars, each mark a testament to battles won against leviathans and rivals. Its jaws, still lined with serrated teeth, as long as daggers, parted in hunger, but its eyes, once cold and unyielding, now carried a weary resignation. The sea was nearly silent, the schools of fish dwindled to sparse flickers, the giant whales all but gone. Hunger was a relentless beast, gnawing at the Titan's core, driving it to chase ghosts in the currents. The Megalodon's tail swept with fading strength, its body leaner, its power a shadow of its former glory. Above, a lone whale, a descendant of the great leviathans, swam sluggishly, its body gaunt from the thinning krill. The megalodon surged from the depths, its jaws snapping with desperate force, teeth sinking into the whale's side. Blood clouded the water, a crimson veil that drew a pod of early orcas, their sleek forms darting with predatory cunning. The titan roared, its tail lashing, but the orcas were relentless, stealing scraps from the kill before the megalodon could drive them off. The whale's flesh was meager, its blubber thin, barely sustaining the titan's massive frame. The sea's hum shook the water, a mournful wail that echoed the titan's struggle, a sound that resonated in its weary bones. In a coastal lagoon, once a thriving nursery, the megalodon's young faced a dying world. The waters, now frigid and barren, offered little prey, and the reefs that had once shielded them were crumbling, exposing the pups to danger. A single pup, barely 3 meters long, snapped at a small fish, its tiny teeth sharp but its body emaciated. The mother, a scarred giant, circled the lagoon, her presence a weakening shield. A rival shark, emboldened by the nursery's decline, struck at the pup, its teeth tearing into its flank. The mother's roar shook the water, her jaws crushing the attacker, but the pup sank, its blood staining the lagoon red. The ocean's hum became a requiem, a lament for a generation lost, a sign that the megalodon's lineage was fading. On the ocean floor, the titan's legacy lay in ruins. Teeth, lost in desperate hunts, sank into the sediment, their edges dulled by the weight of time. The bones of its prey whale ribs, seal spines, the shattered shells of giant turtles were scarce now, scattered across a seabed that grew ever emptier. In a deep trench, a megalodon rested, its massive form coiled around the remains of a lone fish. The kill was pitiful, its flesh barely a morsel, and smaller scavengers circled closer, their boldness a defiance of the titan's fading reign. The sea shadow, the ocean's spirit, stirred in the depths, its presence a flicker in the currents. It was not a creature but a pulse, a force that watched the megalodon with a silent knowing, its hum a prophecy of the end. In the open sea, a lone megalodon hunted, its once mighty pod reduced to a solitary figure. It chased a dwindling pod of whales, their bodies lean and weak. The titan struck, its teeth sinking into a whale's side, but the effort was immense, the reward paltry. A pod of orcas circled, their clicks a taunt, their fins slicing the water with precision. They darted in, stealing the kill, their speed outmatching the megalodon's brute strength. The titan roared, its tail lashing, but the orcas were relentless, their intelligence a weapon the megalodon could not counter. The sea's balance had shifted, favoring cunning over power, and the titan was alone, its kingdom crumbling. The sea shadow's presence was inescapable now, its form a shadow that loomed in the megalodon's vision. It spoke of frozen seas, of prey lost to distant waters, of a world where hunger would triumph over strength. The titan swam on, its jaws closing around a lone seal, its flesh barely enough to dull the hunger. The megalodon's eyes, once fierce, now held a glimmer of exhaustion, as if acknowledging the sea's betrayal. The ocean's hum was a funeral song, vibrating through the deep, a dirge for a titan whose time was running out. As night fell over the Pliocene seas, casting the water in shades of indigo and shadow, the megalodon patrolled its dying kingdom. Its silhouette was a fading blade against the darkness, its power a flicker of what it once was. The ocean sang of its lost glory, but the sea shadow's hum was a warning, a whisper of a time when even the greatest titan would fall. The megalodon's hunger drove it forward, but the sea was no longer its own, and the abyss held secrets that would seal its fate. 2.5 million years ago, as the Pliocene epoch faded into memory, the oceans bore the weight of a world lost to time. The seas, once vibrant with the pulse of life, had become a cold, desolate expanse, their currents twisted by the relentless grip of ice advancing from the poles. Coral reefs lay in ruins, their once colorful spires reduced to gray ghosts, and the ancient whales, their bellows a fading echo, had vanished into the icy depths. The Carcharocles Megalodon, the titan that had ruled the seas for millions of years, was now a shadow of its former glory, its massive form a solitary specter in a dying world. The ocean's hum, a vibration that had once sung of power, was now a mournful requiem, a final lament for a king whose throne was crumbling. In the vast empty waters of what would one day be the Pacific, the last megalodon swam alone. Its 20-meter body, scarred from battles with leviathans and rivals, moved with a weary grace, its slate-gray hide dulled by hunger and time, its jaws, still lined with serrated teeth as long as daggers, parted in a futile search for prey, but its eyes, once cold and unyielding, now held a glimmer of resignation. The sea was silent, its schools of fish reduced to fleeting shadows, its giant whales long gone to colder realms. Hunger was a relentless beast, clawing at the Titan's core, driving it to chase ghosts in the currents. The Megalodon's tail swept with fading strength, its body gaunt, a relic of a reign that had once shaken the deep. Above, a lone whale, a frail descendant of the great leviathans, swam sluggishly, its body emaciated from the scarcity of krill. The Megalodon surged from the abyss, its jaws snapping with desperate force, teeth sinking into the whale's side. Blood clouded the water, a thin crimson veil. But the kill was pitiful. The whale's flesh barely a morsel for the Titan's vast appetite. A pod of early orcas, their sleek forms darting with predatory cunning, circled the kill, stealing scraps before the Megalodon could react. The Titan roared, its tail lashing, but the orcas were gone, their speed and intelligence a final insult to the fading king. The sea's hum was a deafening roar now, a dirge that shook the water, echoing the Titan's solitude. In a coastal lagoon, once a thriving nursery, the Megalodon's lineage had vanished. The waters, now frigid and barren, held no pups, no hope for the future. The reefs that had once shielded the young were gone, eroded by the relentless tides, and the last mother Megalodon had long since sunk into the abyss, her roar silenced. The lagoon was a graveyard, its sediment littered with the tiny teeth of pups that never grew, their bones mingling with the remains of fish and small sharks. The ocean's hum was a funeral song, a lament for a species that could no longer endure, a sign that the Megalodon's time was over. On the ocean floor, the Titan's legacy lay in scattered ruins. Teeth, lost in desperate hunts, sank into the sediment, their edges dulled by the weight of ages. The bones of its prey whale ribs, seal spines, the shattered shells of giant turtles were rare now, buried in a seabed that grew ever emptier. In a deep trench, the last Megalodon rested, its massive form coiled around the remains of a lone fish. The kill was meager, its flesh a fleeting respite from the hunger that consumed the Titan. Smaller scavengers circled, their boldness a final defiance of the Megalodon's reign. The sea shadow, the ocean's spirit, stirred in the depths, its presence a flicker in the currents. It was not a creature but a pulse, a force that watched the Titan with a silent knowing, its hum a requiem for a king whose time had come. In the open sea, the Megalodon swam alone, its pod long gone, its strength fading. It chased a faint shadow, a ghost of a whale that flickered in the distance. Its jaws snapped, catching only water, the effort draining its last reserves. A pod of orcas circled, their clicks a mocking chorus, their fins slicing the water with precision. They did not attack, for the Megalodon was no longer a threat, its power a memory. The Titan's eyes, dim with exhaustion, locked on the horizon, as if seeking the seas of its youth. The sea shadow's presence was inescapable now, its form a shadow that loomed in the Titan's vision. It spoke of frozen seas, of prey lost forever, of a world where strength could not prevail. The Megalodon swam on, its jaws closing around a final, fleeting fish, its taste a bitter echo of its lost kingdom. The ocean's hum was a funeral dirge, vibrating through the deep, a song of loss that shook the Titan's bones. The Megalodon slowed, its massive form sinking into the abyss, its eyes closing as the currents claimed it. The sea fell silent, its pulse fading, the absence of the Titan a wound in the ocean's heart. The sea shadow lingered, its hum a final farewell, a whisper that the Megalodon's reign was over. Teeth and bones sank to the ocean floor, joining the sediment, the last traces of a species that had ruled for millions of years. The abyss closed, and the sea mourned, its silence a testament to the Titan's fall. As darkness enveloped the Pliocene seas, the waves moved without their king, their surface a mirror for a sky empty of stars. The ocean's hum faded, replaced by the cries of new predators, orcas, sharks, and others that would rise in the Megalodon's wake. But the sea remembered, its currents carrying the echo of a Titan whose power had shaped its depths. The sea shadow retreated into the abyss, its work done, leaving behind a world forever changed by the loss of its greatest lord. The Pacific Ocean stretched vast and unyielding under a September sky, its waves whispering secrets from a time when giants ruled the deep. It was 2025, and Dr. Elena Torres, a marine biologist with salt-streaked hair and eyes sharpened by years at sea, stood on the deck of the research vessel Elysium, anchored off a remote trench near the Mariana Islands. She clutched a weathered journal, its pages filled with notes from a forgotten expedition. Her team had uncovered a trove of megalodon fossils, teeth as long as daggers, vertebrae the size of boulders buried in the sediment of a seabed that had once trembled under the Titan's reign. The Carcharocles Megalodon, the greatest predator the oceans had ever known, was gone, extinguished 2.6 million years ago, but its legacy lingered, a haunting echo in the deep. Elena's fingers traced a fossilized tooth, its serrated edge still sharp after millions of years. The megalodon had been a colossus, its 20-meter body a force of nature, its jaws capable of crushing whale skulls. Her team's sonar had mapped the trench, revealing a graveyard of bones, whale ribs, seal spines, the shattered shells of giant turtles intermingled with the Titan's teeth. Each find was a piece of a story, a testament to a species that had shaped the seas for millions of years. But the journal, salvaged from a shipwreck off the coast, told a different tale. Written by a 19th-century explorer, it spoke of a sea shadow, a spirit of the deep revered by coastal tribes, said to carry the megalodon's soul. Elena felt a chill, as if the ocean itself watched her. The Elysium rocked in the swells, its crew a mix of scientists and divers buzzing with excitement. The trench, a scar in the ocean floor, held secrets of the Pliocene, a time when the megalodon ruled as the apex predator. Elena's team had spent weeks mapping the site, their submersibles capturing images of a submerged world, coral skeletons, fossilized reefs, and the bones of creatures long extinct. The journal described the megalodon's hunts, its teeth sinking into leviathans, its presence balancing the sea's ecosystems. But it also spoke of its fall, driven by cooling seas, vanishing prey, and rivals like ancient orcas. Elena's heart ached for the Titan, a giant undone by a changing world. As the sun dipped low, casting golden rays across the waves, Elena prepared for a dive. The trench was deep, its waters cold and treacherous, but she needed to see the megalodon's resting place. She suited up, her oxygen tank heavy, her mind replaying the journal's words. The sea shadow mourns its king, but the ocean never forgets. Her dive partner, Kai, a Polynesian oceanographer with a knack for folklore, checked her gear. "You'd think it's still out there?" he asked, half smiling. Elena's eyes gleamed. Not the megalodon, but its spirit, maybe. The ocean's hum, a faint vibration she'd felt since childhood, pulsed in her chest, urging her downward. The dive was a descent into darkness, the water swallowing light as they sank into the trench. Elena's flashlight swept the seafloor, revealing a landscape of ancient bones. A megalodon tooth, embedded in a whale's vertebra, glinted like a relic of a lost god. She brushed away sediment, uncovering a massive rib, its curve a testament to the Titan's size. Kai signaled, pointing to a cluster of fossils, a graveyard where the megalodon's prey had fallen, their bones intertwined with the Titan's teeth. The ocean's hum grew louder, a low, mournful note that vibrated through her suit, as if the sea itself spoke. Deeper in the trench, Elena found a carved stone, its surface etched with swirling waves and a shark's silhouette. It was not a fossil but a relic, left by an ancient people who revered the sea. The journal mentioned tribes who saw the megalodon as a guardian, its power tied to the ocean's balance. Elena's heart raced. She reached for the stone, and the hum intensified, a pulse that shook her bones. For a moment, she saw a shadow, a massive form gliding through the gloom, its eyes glinting with ancient wisdom. The vision faded, but the hum lingered, a whisper of the sea shadow, a spirit that carried the megalodon's memory. Back on the Elysium, Elena met with a coastal elder, Tane, whose people had passed down stories of the sea shadow. His weathered face lit with recognition as she showed him the stone. "The great shark was our kin," he said, his voice soft as waves. "It ruled the deep, but the sea turned cold, and its hunger consumed it. The sea shadow warns us to protect what remains." Elena nodded, the journal heavy in her hands. She thought of the megalodon's false starvation, competition, a world no longer theirs, and saw a parallel to today's oceans, strained by human greed. That night, Elena stood on the deck, The journal opened to a sketch of a megalodon's tooth, its edge sharp as a promise. The ocean's hum was faint now, but it carried a weight, a call to action. She vowed to share the Titan's story, to publish the fossil's secrets, to make the world see the cost of imbalance. The waves glowed under the stars, as if the sea shadow watched, its presence a reminder that the ocean's memory was eternal. Alina whispered to the sea, "I'll tell them," her voice a pledge to the Titan, whose reign had ended, but whose echo lingered in the deep. The Pacific Ocean stretched endless under a September sky, its waves whispering tales of a time when Titans ruled the deep. It was September 2025, and Dr. Elena Torres stood on the rocky shore of a remote island near the Mariana Trench, the carved stone from the Megalodon's fossil bed clutched in her hand. The stone, etched with swirling waves and a shark's silhouette, was a relic of an ancient people who revered the Carcharocles Megalodon as a guardian of the sea. Elena's heart pounded with purpose, her mind filled with images of the Titan's reign, its 20-meter form slicing through ancient waters, its serrated teeth crushing whale bones, its presence shaping the oceans for millions of years. The journal she'd found, paired with the fossils her team had uncovered, told a story of glory and loss, a warning etched in the sediment of the deep. Elena's research vessel, the Elysium, rocked gently in the harbor, its deck crowded with scientists poring over Megalodon fossils, teeth as long as daggers, vertebrae the size of boulders, and the bones of ancient whales that bore the Titan's bite marks. Her dive into the trench had revealed a graveyard of the Pliocene, a world where the Megalodon had ruled until cooling seas, vanishing prey, and cunning rivals like early orcas brought its end 2.6 million years ago. The journal, penned by a 19th-century explorer, spoke of the sea shadow, a spirit revered by coastal tribes as the Megalodon's soul, a force that watched over the ocean's balance. Elena felt its presence, a faint hum in the waves, urging her to share the Titan's story with a world that needed to listen. Back at her research station, Elena worked tirelessly, her desk strewn with notes and sketches. The fossils told a tale of a super predator, its jaws capable of shattering skulls, its hunts sustaining the sea's ecosystems by culling the weak. But they also spoke of its false starvation as whales fled to colder waters, competition from agile orcas, and nurseries exposed by falling sea levels. The journal's final entry haunted her. The sea shadow mourns its king, but its lesson endures. Elena saw parallels to today's ocean squirrel, reefs bleaching, fish stocks collapsing, the balance tipping under human greed. She vowed to make the Megalodon story a beacon, a call to protect what remained. Her findings, published in a global journal, sparked a firestorm. Images of Megalodon teeth, their edges sharp after millions of years, filled screens worldwide, igniting awe and urgency. Conservation groups rallied, citing the Titan's extinction as a warning. The seas could not withstand endless exploitation. Elena's lectures drew crowds, her voice steady as she described the Megalodon's reign and its loss. "It was the ocean's lord," she said, holding up a fossilized tooth, "but even it fell when the sea turned against it. We're pushing our oceans to the same edge." Her words, amplified by the journal's sketches, stirred hearts, but she knew words alone were not enough. Elena returned to the island, seeking Taini, the coastal elder who had shared the sea shadow's legend. His weathered face lit with recognition as she showed him the stone. "The great shark was our teacher," he said, his voice soft as waves. "It ruled with strength, but the sea demanded balance. You carry its lesson now." He handed her a pouch of sediment from the fossil site, its grains mixed with crushed shells. "Scatter this," he said, "and listen." Elena nodded, feeling the hum again, a vibration that pulsed through her bones, as if the sea shadow still watched. At dawn, she stood on the shore, the pouch heavy in her hand. The waves glowed faintly, their rhythm a heartbeat of the deep. She scattered the sediment, watching it sink into the sea, a final offering to the Megalodon. The hum grew louder, a low, mournful note that shook the air. For a moment, she saw a shadow, a massive form gliding through the waves, its eyes glinting with ancient wisdom. The vision faded, but the hum lingered, a whisper of the sea shadow, a call to honor the Titan's memory. Elena's eyes stung with tears, not for the Megalodon alone, but for the seas it had left behind, now fragile under humanity's weight. Back at the Elysium, Elena wrote her final report, her words a bridge between past and present. The Megalodon ruled for millions of years, a titan of the deep, but it fell when the ocean changed, she wrote. Its extinction is our lesson. We are the sea's keepers, or its destroyers. She included the journals, sketches, the stone's carvings, and Taine stories, weaving a narrative that blended science and spirit. Her work inspired policies. Marine sanctuaries expanded, fishing quotas tightened, coral restoration funded. But Alina knew the fight was far from over. The ocean's hum, a constant reminder of its fragility. As night fell, Alina stood on the deck, the stars reflecting on the waves. The hum was softer now, a gentle pulse that carried forgiveness, a hope that humanity could learn. She whispered to the sea, "We'll try," her voice a pledge to the Megalodon, to the sea shadow, to the future. The waves glowed, a faint shimmer under the stars, as if the ocean accepted her vow, carrying the Titan's memory into eternity.